Welcome back. I'm Sage, and this is Easy English with Sage.
Ooh, that's good. That sounds professional. One of my favorite phrases for this is, "That's a valid point," and I'd like to add to that. Say it with me. That's a valid point, and I'd like to add to that. Feel how smooth that is. Valid is a beautiful word. It means something is reasonable, it's well-founded, it has merit. And when you say, "I'd like to add to that," you're showing that you're not just agreeing, you're contributing. You're part of the conversation, not just a passenger in it. Let me give you a context. Imagine your colleague just said in a meeting, "I think we need to reconsider our marketing strategy for the next quarter." You want to agree and add your own thought. You could say, "That's a valid point, and I'd like to add that our recent data suggests the current approach isn't resonating with our target audience as effectively as we'd hoped." That sounds like someone who is calm, informed, and confident. Let's break it down even further. Isn't resonating with our target audience. That's a phrase worth pausing on. To resonate means to have a meaningful effect, to connect deeply with someone. So when something isn't resonating with your audience, it means it's not connecting. It's not hitting the right notes. Try using resonate in a sentence today. Just once. Notice how it feels. And here's another beautiful phrase that works in the same kind of moment. When you want to agree, but you also want to gently redirect or expand the idea. Building on what you just said. Building on what you just said, I think it's also worth considering the long-term impact on customer retention. Say it with me. Building on what you just said. Repeat after me, a little slower. Building on what you just said. One more time, with confidence. Building on what you just said, I think it's also worth considering. Yes, that's it. That right there is the kind of English that opens doors. Now, I want to pause here for a second and just talk to you. Not as a teacher, but as someone who genuinely understands what it feels like to want to speak well and feel like the words are cooperating. So many learners, especially from South Asia, from places like Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Nepal, they grow up surrounded by English. They study it in school. They read it. They understand it when they hear it. But there's this wall, this invisible wall that appears the moment they have to speak. And on the other side of that wall is fluency, confidence, the version of themselves they know they can be. And this wall, I want you to know, it is not permanent. It is not a sign of low intelligence or lack of ability. It is simply a stage that practice, patience, and the right kind of input can absolutely dissolve. Every phrase you hear today, every sentence you repeat, every pause you take to absorb, you are chipping away at that wall. Okay, let's keep going. Let's talk about disagreeing professionally. Because this is where so many people struggle. Disagreeing in English, especially in a professional setting, without sounding rude, without creating tension, without burning a bridge, that is a skill. And it's a skill that most English courses don't teach you. They teach you grammar, they teach you vocabulary, but they don't teach you how to say, "I think you're wrong," in a way that makes the other person feel respected. Here's a phrase that does exactly that. I see where you're coming from, however. I see where you're coming from, however, I'm not sure that approach would work in our current situation. Say it with me. I see where you're coming from, however, I see where you're coming from. It says, I hear you. I understand your perspective. I'm not dismissing you. And then, however, this one word does the heavy lifting. It's the gentle pivot. It says, but here's my thought. Let's practice the full sentence again. Repeat after me. I see where you're coming from. However, I believe a different approach might yield better results. Yield better results. Another C1 gem. To yield means to produce or provide. So yield better results means to produce better outcomes. It's formal, it's clean, it's impressive without being over the top. And if you want something slightly softer, maybe you're not fully disagreeing, you just have a concern. You can use this. I take your point, though I do have some reservations about. I take your point, though I do have some reservations about the timeline. Reservations here doesn't mean booking a table at a restaurant, although yes, that's another meaning. Ha ha ha. Here it means concerns, doubts, hesitations. So, I have some reservations about the timeline means I'm a little worried about whether the timeline is realistic. Beautiful, right? Say it. I take your point, though I do have some reservations about. Now add your own ending. What do you have reservations about? The budget? The team? The timeline? Say it out loud right now to yourself. Don't be shy. No one's listening except me, and I'm rooting for you. Tell me in the comments, which phrase did you like the most so far? Building on what you just said? Or, I take your point, though I do have some reservations. I'm genuinely curious. Let's shift gears a little. Let's talk about emails and written professional communication, because a lot of the C1 and C2 phrases that work beautifully in emails are the ones that also sound wonderful when spoken. And emails are often where learners feel the most pressure, because in an email, you have time to think. You can't blame nervousness. Every word is chosen. It's real. So let's take it apart. When you're writing a professional email and you want to open with something that isn't, I hope this email finds you well, because honestly, everyone uses that, and it started to feel a little automatic. Try this instead. I'm reaching out to follow up on our conversation from last week. Or, I wanted to touch base with you regarding the proposal we discussed. Touch base. This is a beautiful, natural, professional idiom. It means to make brief contact, to check in. It comes from baseball, actually. You touch the base to mark your progress. But in professional English, it simply means to briefly connect or check in. And it sounds effortlessly natural. Repeat after me. I wanted to touch base with you regarding. Say that 3 times in your head with different topics. I wanted to touch base with you regarding the project timeline. I wanted to touch base with you regarding the interview. I wanted to touch base with you regarding our meeting next Thursday. Yes, good. Each time you do this, you are building a groove in your brain, a neural pathway, and the more you use it, the more automatic it becomes. That's how fluency works. It's not magic. It's just repetition, done with attention. Now let's talk about requests in professional emails, because how you make a request says a lot about your professional maturity. Compare these two. Send me the report by Friday versus, would it be possible to have the report by Friday? It would be greatly appreciated. Which one sounds more professional? Which one sounds like someone you'd want to work with? The second one, obviously. And the beautiful thing is, both are asking for the same thing. The second one just wraps it in warmth and respect. Would it be possible to? This is a C1 phrase that works in almost every professional request. Would it be possible to schedule a brief call this week? Would it be possible to extend the deadline by 2 days? Would it be possible to get your feedback on this before Thursday? Say it with me. Would it be possible to? And follow it with your own request. Say it out loud. Go ahead. Let me think about what else fits here. Oh, yes, the closing of professional emails. Because how you close an email is just as important as how you open it. A weak closing leaves the conversation hanging. A strong closing leaves the other person clear on what to do next and feeling respected. Instead of just, thanks or best, try these. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this. Thank you for your time and consideration. I truly appreciate it. Now, I look forward to hearing your thoughts. This is a C1 staple. It's warm, it's forward-looking, it invites a response without demanding one. And please don't hesitate to reach out. This one tells the other person that the door is open, that you're approachable, that communication is welcome. Repeat after me. Please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. One more time. I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this. Excellent. You're doing brilliantly. If you're still with me right now, type "still here with Sage" in the comments. I would love to see that. It means you're committed, and commitment is everything when it comes to language learning. Now, let's talk about something that comes up in almost every professional environment, but that nobody really teaches you how to handle gracefully. And that is when you don't understand something, when someone says something and it goes over your head, when the meeting is moving too fast and you've lost the thread. So many learners, especially when they're still building their English confidence, will stay silent in these moments. They'll nod, they'll smile, they'll hope nobody asks them directly. And I completely understand that instinct. It feels safer. But the truth is, asking for clarification is actually a sign of intelligence. It is a sign of professionalism. The most respected people in any room are often the ones who say, clearly and calmly, I want to make sure I understand this correctly. So let's practice some clarification phrases. Could you elaborate on that point? Elaborate. What a word. To elaborate means to explain in more detail, to expand on an idea. So, could you elaborate on that point? Is a polished professional way of saying, could you explain that a bit more? Say it with me. Could you elaborate on that point? And here's another one. Just to make sure I'm on the same page, are you saying that? On the same page? This is an idiom that means everyone has the same understanding, same information. So, just to make sure I'm on the same page is a warm way of checking your understanding without making it seem like you weren't listening. Just to make sure I'm on the same page, are you saying that the deadline has been moved to the end of the month? Say it with me. Just to make sure I'm on the same page. And one more. If I understand correctly, your main concern is. This one is especially powerful because it shows that you've been listening. It shows engagement, and it gives the other person a chance to confirm or to correct you, which is also valuable. If I understand correctly, your main concern is the budget allocation for Q3. Is that right? Say it. If I understand correctly, these 3 phrases, could you elaborate, just to make sure I'm on the same page, and if I understand correctly, these are your professional clarification toolkit. And they work in meetings, in emails, in interviews, in casual professional conversations. Okay, let me take a breath here. And I want you to take one too. A real, slow breath. In through the nose, out through the mouth. Because here's something I want to say to you, genuinely and from the heart. Learning a language at this level, at C1 and C2, is not easy. It takes courage. It takes consistency. It takes the willingness to feel a little uncomfortable, a little uncertain, and to keep going anyway. And the fact that you are here, that you pressed play on this video, that you're still listening. That says something really beautiful about you. You are someone who is serious about growth. And growth, my friend, is never wasted. All right, let's go deeper. Now we're going to explore something I find absolutely fascinating, and that's the language of persuasion and influence in professional settings. Because at the C1 and C2 level, it's not just about being understood. It's about being compelling. It's about making your ideas land. It's about having people not just hear you, but believe you. And the good news? Persuasive professional English is very learnable. There are patterns, there are phrases, and once you know them, you'll start to hear them everywhere. Let's start with one of the most powerful persuasion techniques in professional communication: framing your idea around the benefit to others. Instead of saying, "I think we should do this," try saying, "This approach would allow us to," which could ultimately lead to. This approach would allow us to streamline our processes, which could ultimately lead to a significant reduction in overhead costs. Feel the difference. The first version centers you, "I think." The second version centers the outcome, the benefit, the result, the value. And that shift from "I" to "us," from "I think" to "this would allow," that is the language of leadership. Say it with me. This approach would allow us to creating. And another powerful framing phrase. One of the key advantages of this strategy is that it addresses both the short-term demand and the long-term scalability of the product. Say it. One of the key advantages of this strategy is. Key advantages. These two words together sound confident and clear. Not good things. Key advantages. Not "it would help." It addresses. Every word is chosen for precision and confidence. Now, here's a phrase that works brilliantly when you want to introduce a new idea that might be a little bold, a little outside the box. What if we approached this from a different angle? What if we approached this from a different angle and considered partnering with external vendors rather than expanding the internal team? What if we approached this from a different angle? This is an invitation. It's curious. It's open. It doesn't say "you're wrong" or "that won't work." And another powerful framing phrase. One of the key advantages of this strategy is, it says, "Let's explore together." And that spirit of collaborative exploration, that is magnetic in professional settings. Repeat after me. What if we approached this from a different angle? Try it one more time. What if we approached this from a different angle and. Now finish the sentence with your own idea. Whatever you're working on, whatever situation is in your mind right now, say it out loud, even if it's just to yourself. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I'm here every day, putting these sessions together just for you. And every subscriber is a reminder that this work matters. Let's talk now about presentations. Because even if you've never presented in English before, the moment is coming. Maybe it's a team update, maybe it's a client call, maybe it's a job interview where you have to walk someone through your experience. In all of these moments, the ability to structure your spoken English clearly, to guide your listener through your thinking, is invaluable. And at the C1 and C2 level, this structure comes from what I call signposting language. Signposting means putting up signs for your listener, letting them know where you are, where you're going, and what they should pay attention to. Let's walk through some of the most powerful signposting phrases. To begin a point, first and foremost, I'd like to highlight that. First and foremost, I'd like to highlight that our quarterly results exceeded projections by 14%. First and foremost means most importantly, above everything else. And I'd like to highlight means I want to draw your attention to this specifically. Say it with me. First and foremost, I'd like to highlight that. To move to a new point, Moving on to the next area of focus. Moving on to the next area of focus. Let's look at the customer feedback from Q3. Say it. Moving on to the next area of focus. To emphasize something particularly important, it's worth noting that this is the third consecutive quarter of growth, which speaks to the strength of the team's efforts. It's worth noting 3 small words that signal, pay attention. This is important. Don't skip over this. Repeat after me. It's worth noting that. To wrap up a section, to summarize the key takeaways from this section, we've seen growth, we've identified challenges, and we have a clear path forward. Say it with me. To summarize the key takeaways and to close a presentation, in conclusion, I'd like to leave you with this thought. The data shows us what's possible. What happens next depends on the actions we take today. Oh, that's a strong close. Say it. In conclusion, I'd like to leave you with. Say it. Moving on to the next area of focus. To emphasize something particularly important, it's worth noting that this is the third consecutive quarter of growth, which speaks to the strength of the team's efforts. Now, let's do a quick run-through of all the signposting phrases together. I'll say them, and you repeat each one. Ready? First and foremost, I'd like to highlight that. Moving on to the next area of focus. It's worth noting that. To summarize the key takeaways. In conclusion, I'd like to leave you with this thought. Perfect. Those 5 phrases alone can transform the way you present. Not because they're complex, but because they give your listener clarity. And clarity is kindness. When you make it easy for someone to follow your thinking, they trust you more. They respect you more. Quick check. Are you practicing out loud? Because reading alone won't do it. Speaking is where the magic happens. Say them in the shower. Say them on your commute. Say them to your reflection in the mirror. Every time you say a phrase out loud, you are building the muscle memory that makes it automatic. And automatic is what we're going for. Not thinking about the phrase, just using it. Naturally, confidently. Now let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in English learning. And that is the language of handling pressure professionally. Because life at work isn't always smooth. Deadlines slip, problems arise, people get frustrated. And how you communicate in those moments, how you stay calm, professional, and solution-focused, that defines how others see you. So here are some phrases for those high-pressure moments. When something has gone wrong and you need to acknowledge it without panicking. We've encountered an unexpected setback, and here's what we're doing to address it. Encountered, a formal, calm word for met or faced. And setback. A setback is a problem, an obstacle, something that slows progress. And by immediately following with, here's what we're doing to address it. You shift from problem to solution, from confusion to clarity. Say it with me. We've encountered an unexpected setback, and here's what we're doing to address it. When you need to buy yourself time to think without sounding uncertain. That's a great question. Let me take a moment to think through that carefully. Beautiful. This phrase does 3 things. 1, it complements the question, which builds goodwill. 2, it buys you thinking time honestly and confidently. 3, carefully suggests that your answer will be considered and valuable. Say it. That's a great question. Let me take a moment to think through that carefully. And when you want to redirect a conversation that is getting off track, I appreciate that perspective, and I'd like to steer us back to the main agenda for a moment. Steer is a wonderful word here. It means to guide, to direct. So steer us back to the main agenda means to bring the conversation back to the main topic. And I appreciate that perspective. Even if you're gently pushing back, you're honoring the person before redirecting them. Repeat after me. I appreciate that perspective, and I'd like to steer us back to the main agenda for a moment. Excellent. How are you feeling? Energized? A little overwhelmed? Both are completely normal. This is a lot of beautiful, powerful language, and you don't need to master it all in one day. Language learning is not a sprint, it is a marathon. A long, rewarding, endlessly interesting marathon. Tell me in the comments, which phrase from today would you most like to try using this week? I genuinely want to know. Let's now talk about something that trips up even advanced learners: the language of diplomacy. Because sometimes in professional settings, you have to say something difficult. You have to give feedback that isn't positive. You have to deliver news that someone doesn't want to hear. You have to say no to a request. And doing all of that in a way that is honest, respectful, and professional, that is an art. And like all art, it can be learned. Let's start with giving constructive feedback. Instead of saying this isn't good enough, try there's real potential here, and I think with a few adjustments, it could be even stronger. Feel the difference. The first version shuts down. The second version opens up. It acknowledges what's there, the potential, and it points toward improvement without judgment. Say it with me. There's real potential here, and I think with a few adjustments, it could be even stronger. Another powerful feedback phrase I'd encourage you to consider. I'd encourage you to consider reorganizing the structure of the report to make the key findings more accessible to the reader. I'd encourage you to consider. This is an invitation, not a command. It's collaborative. It shows respect for the other person's autonomy while still offering clear guidance. Say it. I'd encourage you to consider. And when you have to say no, professionally, kindly, but clearly, I appreciate you thinking of me for this. However, I'm not in a position to take this on at the moment. I'm not in a position to. This is a beautiful professional way of saying no. It's not harsh. It's not rude. It simply states a reality. This isn't something you can do right now. And it leaves the door open for the future without making promises. Repeat after me. I appreciate you thinking of me for this. However, I'm not in a position to take this on at the moment. Practice that one especially, because saying no professionally, without guilt, without over-explaining, without apologizing excessively, that's a skill that will serve you for the rest of your career. Now, let's shift into something a little different. Let's talk about the language of networking and relationship building in professional English. Because careers are not built in isolation. They're built in conversations, at conferences, at events, in break rooms, in hallways, on LinkedIn, over coffee. And the people who are good at networking aren't necessarily the most extroverted. They're the ones who know how to start a conversation, keep it going, and leave the other person feeling genuinely valued. So let's practice some networking phrases. To open a conversation with someone you don't know well. It's great to finally meet you in person. I've heard wonderful things. Simple, warm, genuine. Finally suggests you've been looking forward to this. I've heard wonderful things. This is a compliment that also creates connection. It says, people speak highly of you. Say it. It's great to finally meet you in person. I've heard wonderful things. To find common ground. What's your take on the changes happening in the industry lately? Your take. This is a natural conversational way of saying your opinion or your perspective. And the changes happening in the industry gives the other person a broad topic to respond to. It's open. It's interesting. It invites them to share something they probably have strong feelings about. Say it with me. What's your take on the changes happening in the industry lately? To keep the conversation going, that's a really interesting perspective. I hadn't thought of it that way. Say it. That's a really interesting perspective. I hadn't thought of it that way. And to close a networking conversation warmly and professionally, it's been such a pleasure talking with you. I'd love to stay in touch. Would you be open to connecting on LinkedIn? Say it. It's been such a pleasure talking with you. I'd love to stay in touch. These phrases, from opening to closing, they form a complete conversation arc. And the more you practice them, the more natural they become. Until one day you're at an event, or on a call, or in a meeting, and the words just come. No translation, no hesitation, just fluent, confident, professional English. That day is coming, I promise you. If you're still with me, and I hope you are, type day 1 in the comments, because today is day 1 of speaking like this. Even if you've been studying for years, today is the day you commit to speaking at this level. And that commitment starts right now. Let's go into the next section. And this one is all about interview English. Because the job interview is, for many learners, the highest stakes English situation in their entire life. You've prepared. You know the subject matter. You know your own experience. But when the questions start, when the interviewer looks at you and says, "Tell me about yourself," something shifts. The heart beats faster. The mind goes a little blank. And the beautiful, organized thoughts you had prepared scatter. So let's make sure that doesn't happen to you. Let's start with the classic. Tell me about yourself. This is not a question about your whole life. This is an invitation to present yourself, your professional identity, your key strengths, your trajectory. And a strong answer follows a simple arc: who you are, what you've done, and where you're headed. Here's an example of how a C1 level professional might answer this. I'm a marketing specialist with over 5 years of experience working across digital and brand strategy. Throughout my career, I've had the opportunity to lead campaigns that significantly increased brand visibility and customer engagement. I'm particularly passionate about data-driven marketing, using insights to craft stories that resonate with the audience. I'm currently looking for a role where I can bring that strategic thinking and creative energy to a team that values innovation. Let's look at the key phrases in that answer. I've had the opportunity to. This is a graceful way of talking about your achievements without sounding boastful. It acknowledges that you were given a chance and that you made the most of it. I'm particularly passionate about. Particularly is a wonderful adverb. It means especially in a specific way. And passionate about shows genuine enthusiasm, not just skill, but love for the work. Data-driven. This is a compound adjective meaning based on data, guided by analysis. It's a phrase that signals modernity, analytical thinking, and precision. A team that values innovation. Ending with this tells the interviewer what kind of environment you're looking for. It's specific. It's thoughtful. And if the company values innovation, which most do, it creates an immediate alignment. Say the opening line with me. I'm at your profession with over X years of experience in. Fill in your own details. Say it out loud, even if it feels a little awkward the first time. Say it again and again until it feels like the most natural thing in the world. Now, another interview classic. What is your greatest strength? A weak answer names a strength and stops. A strong C1 answer names the strength, explains it, and illustrates it with a brief example. One of my greatest strengths is my ability to remain composed under pressure. In my previous role, we faced a significant project crisis 2 days before the client presentation. Rather than panicking, I coordinated the team, redistributed tasks, and we delivered the presentation on time. I think that experience really demonstrated my ability to stay solution-focused when the situation is difficult. Remain composed under pressure. Composed means calm, collected, not rattled. And under pressure means in difficult or stressful situations. Together, this is a powerful professional phrase. Rather than panicking, this shows self-awareness and emotional intelligence. You're telling the interviewer, I could have panicked, but I didn't. That's leadership. Solution-focused, another beautiful compound adjective. It means your attention is always on finding the answer, not dwelling on the problem. Say it with me. One of my greatest strengths is my ability to. Now let's tackle, where do you see yourself in 5 years? This question terrifies so many people. But the key is, the interviewer isn't looking for a precise 5-year plan. They're looking for ambition, alignment, and self-awareness. In 5 years, I see myself in a senior role where I'm contributing at a strategic level, ideally leading a team or a key initiative within the organization. I want to have developed deep expertise in my field, and I'm genuinely excited about the growth opportunities this role would offer. I believe that if I can continue to learn, contribute meaningfully, and take on increasing responsibility, that progression feels very achievable. Say it. In 5 years, I see myself in a role where, finish the sentence with your own vision. What do you actually want in 5 years? Say it in English. Right now, how does that feel? Saying your own future in English out loud? That feeling is important. Hold on to it. Quick check. Did you subscribe yet? If not, now's the time. I promise every session is exactly like this one. Long, immersive, real practice. And I'd love to have you as a regular part of this community. Let me tell you a small story now, because sometimes a story teaches more than 100 phrases. Imagine a young woman. Let's call her Mira. She grew up in a city in South Asia where English was spoken at school but rarely at home. She was sharp. She was ambitious. She studied hard and got a job at a multinational company. And on her first day, she walked into a meeting room full of colleagues. Some of them native English speakers, some of them from different countries, and she sat down and she understood everything, every word, every point. But when the manager looked at her and said, Mira, what do you think about the approach we've been discussing? She froze. Not because she didn't have thoughts. She had so many thoughts, but they were in another language in her head, and by the time she translated them, the moment had passed, and someone else had spoken. And she smiled, and she nodded, and she said, I think it sounds good. And she went home that evening, feeling like she had let herself down. Does that sound familiar? Even just a little? The thing is, Mira didn't have a knowledge problem. She had a fluency problem. She could think in her language. She just hadn't yet trained herself to think and express in English automatically. And that's exactly what this session and every session on this channel is designed to help with. We are building the automatic. We are building the instant. We are making English the language your thoughts reach for first, not second. And it happens gradually, and then suddenly. And one day, someone will ask Mira a question in a meeting, and she'll answer. Clear, calm, professional, without translating first, without freezing, just speaking. And it will feel like flying. That day is not far away, for Mira and for you. Let's practice some more. Let's talk about the language of proposals and recommendations. because this comes up constantly in professional life. Someone asks, "What do you suggest?" Or, "What do you recommend?" And you need to answer with clarity and confidence. Here are some powerful phrases for recommendations. Based on the data we have, I would recommend. Based on the data we have, I would recommend implementing a phased rollout rather than a full-scale launch. This grounds your recommendation in evidence, not just opinion. It says, I'm not just guessing. I've looked at the information, and phased rollout means doing something gradually, in stages, rather than all at once. Say it. Based on the data we have, I would recommend another recommendation phrase. The most effective course of action, in my view, would be to consolidate the two teams and create a unified project structure. Course of action, this phrase means plan or approach. Most effective course of action means the best plan. And in my view, 3 small words that do a big job. They tell the listener, this is my professional perspective, it's grounded, it's considered. Say it with me. The most effective course of action, in my view, would be to. And when you want to recommend something while acknowledging the complexity of the situation, while there's no one-size-fits-all solution, I think the approach that best suits our current needs is no one-size-fits-all. This idiom means there's no single solution that works for everyone. And by acknowledging that first, you show nuance. You show that you understand the complexity. And then you still make a clear recommendation. That combination, nuance plus decisiveness, is very powerful. Say it. While there's no one-size-fits-all solution, I think the approach that best suits our current needs is, let's keep going, because we're building something real here. Every phrase you're saying, every sentence you're repeating, you are building confidence from the inside out. Now, let's talk about the language of meetings, specifically how to facilitate or contribute to a meeting in a way that is structured, professional, and clear. If you're leading a meeting, opening it well sets the tone for everything that follows. Thank you all for being here. I'd like to start by briefly outlining today's agenda, and then we'll dive into each point. Outlining the agenda. To outline means to give the main points without going into full detail. To dive into each point means to explore each one fully. Together, this opening tells people, here's the structure, and we're going to move through it efficiently. Say it with me. I'd like to start by briefly outlining today's agenda, and then we'll dive into each point. And when you want to invite input during a meeting, I'd love to hear different perspectives on this. Who would like to share their thoughts? This is inclusive. It's warm. It opens the floor without putting anyone on the spot. When you want to move the meeting forward, let's table that discussion for now and circle back to it if we have time. Table that discussion. This means to set it aside temporarily. Circle back means to return to it later. Both of these are very common professional idioms, and using them confidently signals that you're comfortable in professional English environments. Say it. Let's table that discussion for now and circle back to it if we have time. And to close a meeting. Before we wrap up, let's confirm the action items and who is responsible for each. Wrap up. This means to finish, to bring to a close. Action items. These are the tasks that need to be done after the meeting, assigned to specific people. A meeting without action items is often a meeting that doesn't lead to results. So by explicitly naming them at the close, you show leadership. Say it with me. Before we wrap up, let's confirm the action items and who is responsible for each. You are doing so well. I mean it. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had to lead a meeting in English? Or has that always felt like a distant, slightly scary dream? Let me know, because your journey matters, and I genuinely want to hear about it. Now, let's explore the language of reports and formal writing. Because at C1 and C2 level, you may need to write or speak in ways that are more formal, more precise, and more analytical than everyday conversation. Some learners find this intimidating, but I want to reframe it for you. Formal language is not cold language. It is precise language. It's language that respects the intelligence of the reader. It's language that says, I thought carefully about this before putting it on the page or saying it out loud. Here are some phrases for formal reports and analytical writing. To present findings, the data indicates that customer satisfaction has improved by 23% following the implementation of the new support system. This finding suggests that further investment in the support infrastructure would likely yield significant returns. In contrast to the previous approach, the new methodology demonstrates improvements in a more effective and efficient manner. This finding suggests that the changes are not only beneficial, but likely transformative. And methodology is a formal word for method or approach, the way something is done. Using it in the right context shows vocabulary range. Say it with me. In contrast to the previous approach, the new methodology demonstrates. To make a recommendation based on analysis, in light of the above findings, it is recommended that. In light of, this phrase means considering or taking into account. In light of the above findings, it is recommended that the marketing budget be reallocated to focus on digital channels. Say it. In light of the above findings, it is recommended that. These formal phrases are the language of reports, proposals, analyses, and white papers. And if your career involves any of these, or if you aspire to work in environments where they do, these phrases are your tools. Let's take a moment now and just breathe and appreciate how far we've come in this session. We've covered professional agreements and disagreements, presentation signposting, diplomatic feedback, networking, interviews, meeting facilitation, formal reports. This is not a beginner's journey. This is a C1, C2 journey, and you've been on it from the very first minute. I want to remind you of something. Every expert was once a beginner. Every fluent speaker once stumbled over these phrases. Every confident professional once sat exactly where you're sitting now, listening, learning, practicing. The only thing that separates where you are from where you want to be is time and practice, and time passes anyway, so you might as well fill it with practice. Now, let's get into some rapid-fire practice. I'm going to give you a phrase, and I want you to say it immediately. Don't think too long. Just say it. Ready? Building on what you just said, say it. I see where you're coming from, however, say it. Could you elaborate on that point? Say it. I'd like to steer us back to the main agenda. Based on the data, I would recommend. In light of the above findings, it is recommended that there's real potential here, and with a few adjustments, it could be even stronger. One of my greatest strengths is my ability to. I'm not in a position to take this on at the moment. It's been such a pleasure talking with you. Excellent. Brilliant. You just practiced 10 C1, C2 phrases in rapid succession. And if you said them out loud, really out loud, not just in your head, you should be feeling something right now. A little buzz, a little, oh, I can actually do this. That feeling is real. That feeling is progress. Try it one more time. Go back through those 10 phrases and say each one smoothly, confidently, as if you're in a professional setting right now. I'll wait. Good. How does that feel? Now let's talk about something I think about a lot, the relationship between vocabulary and confidence. Because a lot of learners think vocabulary is about knowing rare or difficult words. And yes, having a broad vocabulary is valuable. But at C1 and C2 level, it's less about rare words and more about using the right word at the right moment. Precision, nuance, the ability to say exactly what you mean with exactly the right shade of meaning. Let me give you an example. There are many ways to say something is important. Important, significant, crucial, critical, vital, pivotal. Each of these words carries a slightly different weight, a slightly different shade. Important, general, something matters. Significant, notable, with measurable impact. Crucial, necessary, without which something cannot succeed. Critical, extremely urgent or important, often in a crisis sense. Vital, essential for survival or success. Pivotal, a turning point, a moment that determines what happens next. Paramount, above everything else. Now say this. This decision is crucial to the success of the project. And this, customer feedback at this stage is vital to ensuring the product meets market needs. And this, the next 3 months are pivotal for the company's direction. Feel the difference? Same family of meaning, but each word puts a slightly different spotlight on the importance. This is C1, C2 vocabulary. Not obscure, not foreign, just precise. Let's practice a few more vocabulary pairings like this. Show versus demonstrate versus illustrate versus evidence. The results show an increase. Simple, clear. The results demonstrate a significant improvement. More formal, stronger. The case study illustrates how the strategy can be applied, showing through example. The data evidences a clear correlation. Very formal, almost academic. Same basic meaning. Very different registers, very different impacts. Say each one. The results demonstrate a significant improvement. The case study illustrates how the strategy can be applied. The data evidences a clear correlation. Now here's an exercise for you. Think of a situation at your work, school, or life right now, something you need to explain or describe, and try using one of those verbs, demonstrate, illustrate, evidence, instead of just show. See how it changes the feel of your sentence. Say it out loud, right now, your own sentence, with your own context. Brilliant. Don't forget, every time you do this kind of active practice, creating your own sentences, using these phrases in your own context, you are doing something that passive learning never achieves. You are making this language yours. If you're finding this session valuable, please share it with a friend who's also learning English, because learning together is always more powerful than learning alone. And every share helps this channel grow, so I can keep creating more sessions like this one for you. Now let's enter what I like to call the professional conversation simulation section. This is where we bring everything together into real contextual practice. I'll describe a scenario. We'll walk through it together, and you'll practice responding. Scenario 1. You're in a meeting. Your manager has just presented a new strategy for expanding into a new market. You have concerns about the timeline, but you want to express them professionally without undermining the proposal. What do you say? Try it. Take a breath, pause, and then say something like this. Thank you for sharing this. I think the direction is really exciting. I do, however, have some reservations about the proposed timeline. Given the complexity of entering a new market, I wonder if building in additional buffer time might reduce risk and ultimately lead to a stronger launch. Would it be possible to revisit the schedule with that in mind? Let's break this down. I think the direction is really exciting. Start with genuine acknowledgement. I do, however, have some reservations about. The however in the middle is doing powerful diplomatic work. Given the complexity of entering a new market, you're grounding your concern in logic. Might reduce risk and ultimately lead to, you're presenting the benefit of your suggestion. Would it be possible to revisit the schedule? You're ending with a collaborative question, not a demand. Say that whole response with me. Take your time. Thank you for sharing this. I think the direction is really exciting. I do, however, have some reservations about the proposed timeline. Given the complexity of entering a new market, I wonder if building in additional buffer time might reduce risk and ultimately lead to a stronger launch. Would it be possible to revisit the schedule with that in mind? Yes. That is professional English at its finest. Scenario 2. You're at a networking event. You've just been introduced to someone senior in your industry. The conversation is starting. What do you say? It's wonderful to meet you. I've been following your work for some time. Your recent article on digital transformation was particularly insightful. I'd love to hear your thoughts on where the industry is headed over the next few years. Beautiful. You opened with genuine warmth. You referenced specific work, which shows you're genuinely engaged, not just making small talk. And you asked a big open question that invites a meaningful response. Say it. It's wonderful to meet you. I've been following your work for some time. Scenario 3. You're in a job interview. The interviewer asks, "Can you describe a time when you handled a difficult situation at work?" This is a behavioral question, and the gold standard for answering it is called the STAR method. Situation, task, action, result. And here's how that sounds in C1 English. Certainly. In my previous role, we experienced a significant drop in client satisfaction scores following a product update. As the team lead, it was my responsibility to identify the root cause and develop a recovery plan. I initiated a series of client feedback sessions, collaborated with the product team to address the key issues, and implemented a communication strategy to rebuild trust. Within 3 months, our client satisfaction scores had returned to their previous levels, and 2 key clients specifically noted the improvement in their feedback. It was a challenging period, but I came away from it with a much clearer understanding of how to manage complex stakeholder relationships. Let's look at the language. Experienced a significant drop. Formal, measured. It was my responsibility to shows ownership. Initiated, a strong active verb. Collaborated with shows teamwork. Had returned to their previous levels. Specific, measurable result. Came away from it with, this is a beautiful natural phrase, meaning, after that experience, I learned. Complex stakeholder relationships, C2 level vocabulary. Say the closing line with me. It was a challenging period, but I came away from it with a much clearer understanding of how to manage complex stakeholder relationships. One more time. It was a challenging period, but I came away from it with. Wonderful. Let me tell you something. Everything you've practiced today, every phrase, every scenario, every word, this is not just English. This is a new version of how you show up in the world, and I don't say that lightly. Language shapes how others see us, but more importantly, and this is the part that really matters, language shapes how we see ourselves. When you find the words for your thoughts, when you express your ideas clearly and confidently, something changes on the inside. You feel more capable, more present, more like the professional you already are, but now in any room, any meeting, any conversation. That is what we're building here. Not just vocabulary, not just grammar, but the confidence to be fully yourself in English. And you are getting there. Every single day. Let's do one more rapid-fire practice round. Say each phrase immediately, no hesitation. This approach would allow us to. One of the key advantages of this strategy is, what if we approached this from a different angle? First and foremost, I'd like to highlight that. It's worth noting that. To summarize the key takeaways, in conclusion, I'd like to leave you with this thought. The data indicates that, in light of the above findings, it is recommended that. It's been such a pleasure talking with you. Say them again, faster this time, smoothly, as if they've always been your phrases. There it is. That's the rhythm of professional English. That flow, That ease, that's what we're building, practice session by practice session. Now, as we begin to move toward the final section of today's session, I want to give you something special. I want to give you what I call the Professional English Starter Pack, a set of phrases that you can use starting tomorrow in real situations with real people. When you want to agree, absolutely, and I'd also add that. When you want to disagree diplomatically, that's an interesting point. I see it slightly differently in that. When you want to buy thinking time, that's a great question. Give me a moment to think through that. When you want to make a recommendation, based on what we've discussed, I'd suggest. When you want to show enthusiasm, I'm genuinely excited about this opportunity because. When you want to close a conversation professionally, it's been a real pleasure. I look forward to our next conversation. Absolutely. And I'd also add that. That's an interesting point. I see it slightly differently in that. That's a great question. Give me a moment to think through that. Based on what we've discussed, I'd suggest. I'm genuinely excited about this opportunity because it's been a real pleasure. I look forward to our next conversation. Just to make sure I'm following, are you saying that? I think this has a lot of merit. I do want to flag one potential challenge, which is, I'd like to put forward an idea for consideration. To bring all of this together, the key points are, I'd like to put forward an idea for consideration. To bring all of this together, the key points are, I'd like to put forward an idea for consideration. To bring all of this together, the key points are, now I want to spend a little time on something that often gets overlooked in language learning, and that's the role of listening. Because speaking well and listening well are two sides of the same coin. And in professional settings, your ability to listen, really listen, is just as important as your ability to speak. Active listening in English means not just hearing the words, but showing the other person that you're engaged. And there are specific phrases that signal engagement, that tell the other person, I am with you, I am following you, I care about what you're saying. I see what you mean. That makes a lot of sense. I can see where you're coming from. That's a really good point. I hadn't considered that before. Thank you for raising it. These are not filler phrases. They are bridges. They keep the conversation warm. They make the other person feel heard. And when people feel heard by you, they trust you more. They open up more. And conversations become richer, deeper, and more productive. Say each one. I see what you mean. That makes a lot of sense. I can see where you're coming from. That's a really good point. I hadn't considered that before. Thank you for raising it. Beautiful. These 5 phrases, used naturally and genuinely in any professional conversation, will change how people experience talking with you. Now let's take one final story moment before our closing, because I want to leave you with something that stays with you after today's session ends. Imagine it's 6 months from now. You've been practicing. Not every day perfectly, because life happens and perfection isn't the goal. But consistently. You've watched sessions like this one. You've said the phrases out loud. You've used them in real situations. Some of them felt awkward the first time. Some made you laugh at yourself. Some actually worked, and you noticed the person on the other side respond differently, better, more positively. And 6 months from now, you're in a meeting, and someone asks for your opinion, and you don't freeze. You take a breath, and you say, building on what you just said, I think the most effective course of action, in my view, would be to approach this from a different angle. Here's what I mean. And the room listens, and you finish your thought, and it lands. And somewhere inside you, something shifts. A quiet pride, a quiet knowing. I did it. I spoke in English professionally, confidently, and it was me. That moment is real. That moment is possible. That moment is coming. And everything you did today, every phrase, every repetition, every minute of this session brought you one step closer to it. So, thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for staying. Thank you for practicing. I know it takes time. I know it takes effort. I know there are easier things you could have done with these hours. But you chose this, and that choice matters. Now, as we close today's session, let's do one final practice. Say each of the following phrases with your full voice and your full confidence. I'd like to put forward an idea for consideration. Based on the data, I would recommend a phased approach. I see where you're coming from. However, I believe there's a stronger solution here. In conclusion, I'd like to leave you with this thought. Progress is built one conversation at a time. It's been a real pleasure. I look forward to our next conversation. Beautiful. Say that last one again. It's been a real pleasure. I look forward to our next conversation. Because that's what this is. It's a conversation. You and me, day after day, phrase by phrase, session by session, and I will be here. Every single time. Please subscribe if you haven't yet, because your daily English practice matters, and this channel is built entirely for you. Leave a comment with the phrase from today that you're going to use first, tomorrow in a real situation. I want to hear it. I genuinely do. And remember, fluency is not a destination, it's a direction. And you are moving in exactly the right one. This is Sage, and this has been Easy English with Sage. I'll see you in the next session, my friend. Take care of yourself. Keep practicing, and know this, you are so much closer than you think.